can't, it's already swallowed. Work hard, my
All right, Mr. Chairwoman, I apologize. We could restart.
Sure. Now,
Yes, ma'am.
all right. I'll call to order the regular meeting of the Aberdeen Planning Board. And we'll start by seeking a motion for approval of the agenda.
I make a motion to approve the agenda.
Motion by Mr. Pravat. Is there a second?
Second.
Second right here. Okay,
To who? I'm sorry, who seconded?
Mr. Pomeroy.
Brooks.
Perfect, thank you.
Okay. Is that sort of the way you want me to do it?
Yes, ma'am, please.
Tell you- So
Yes,
she can hear.
yes, ma'am.
Okay, fine. All right. The next, all in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, the next will be approval of the minutes. Hopefully everybody's had a chance to look at those. Are there any discussion or corrections to the minutes? If not, I'll ask for a motion to approve.
I make a motion to approve the minutes to January 16th.
Motion by Mr. Pravat to approve the minutes is second. Second by Mr. Bone. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carried. New business. I'll turn it over to staff.
One minute, I apologize.
Yes, all right.
Chair. I have the ability to screen share, correct?
Oh, yeah, it's,
Guys, that's disabled. Copy that, thank you. Can y'all see that relatively okay?
Can we dim any lights?
They're dimmed already, we can try one more, but it's gonna turn off.
That's much better for us, though.
Can we see that, Dean? All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairwoman. As we had stated earlier, this is a special use permit submitted by SVT Real Estate Holdings, Ms. Sally Thomas. This is for a special use permit that was for or is for a vehicle establishment minor for the application. To give you a little background, this the site plan is up on the screen to show a general layout. The site plan as you may know, through the UDO, the new UDO and the old UDO, site plans are approved at the TRC, the Technical Review Committee level, which is a staff level approval. As such, this is an excerpt from their first submittal. I have spoken with the engineer on the project, the engineer of record, as well as the construction manager regarding this project, and they are working to address some of staff's concerns along with our requirements and rules that they are working with us very diligently on. As such, this is for a property located at 1580 North Sand Hills. Note on the address, Sand Hills is obviously to the north of this property. Poplar is to the south. I don't know if you can see my cursor, but down there is the entrance on Poplar. The road coming in through the north end or the top end of this is the CVS access drive. It is not a public road. It connects with US 1 at the very top of the page. And as such, it throws a little misnomer off that while this property is addressed at North Sand Hills Boulevard, it actually does not have road frontage on North Sand Hills Boulevard. So I wanted to make that point. Also, the property is split zoned. The north end of the property closest towards Sand Hills Boulevard is zoned general commercial GC, and the eastern portion or the bottom part in the photograph is zoned conditional zoning office institutional. That was rezoned in 2017 in case CZ 1704, and as such, the property is roughly 3.393 acres, with approximately 1.65 of the acreage being CZOI. As you may remember, the UDO that was rewritten and adopted that came online on January 1st of this year converted B3, which was neighborhood transitional zoning, to office and institutional zoning district. So when it was rezoned B3CD, which is B3 conditional district. So the nomenclature is just that, a change of nomenclature. For the most part, staff felt, and we've had discussions with this regarding the transition of these zoning districts, that these were very, very similar and more changes in name only than substantial changes in uses types, setbacks, and other zoning aspects. The applicant requested a conditional zoning as part of the request to do a light automotive repair and maintenance facility. The applicant obviously is Ms. Thomas and Thomas Tire. She has 3 buildings or so on Sand Hills, and as such, she'd like to consolidate, to my knowledge, she'd like to consolidate her facilities into one building and one property. And as such, she's looking to purchase this property. She hasn't already, and she requested the conditional zoning in 2017. One of the conditions in 2017 was that a conditional use permit be sought for the specific use of automotive light repair. And at the time, other conditions were also added, such as a minimum 30-foot vegetated buffer. And the third condition, the final condition, was that staff was directed to identify the property as conditional zone. With the new UDO, all parcels in the B3, as I mentioned, were rezoned and converted to office institutional. And the highway commercial corridor or zoning district was converted to commercial. The property is adjacent to general commercial to the north, which is near the CVS, and I believe that's the Aberdeen Fish Company. So you have single family to the east, which are across Poplar, it's to the bottom of the page. You have general commercial and office institutional to the south, the properties to the left of the property. And then to the west, you have general commercial retail major to the north. So there's a vacant property to the north that houses a Aberdeen water tower, and directly on the other side of that is the Granny's Donuts, and I believe there's a self-serve car wash along with the Johnson Street corridor, and I believe that's a Walgreens. So it's on the edge of an existing commercial corridor, but also on the edge of a residential corridor as well in North Poplar at this point. As such, the office institutional district is defined in the new UDO to accommodate a wide variety of moderate to high intensity office, institution, residential uses, in addition to healthcare, personal services, and retail uses. Support services are permitted, provided they're located in multi-tenant buildings and limited floor area. And the general commercial can be roughly defined as major street intersections along major thoroughfares, with residential uses encouraged as standalone uses on the upper floor of retail and office buildings. Use districts are subject to standards to ensure development is compatible with adjacent residential neighborhoods. That's for the general commercial, which is the top part or the east end of this, or the west end of this property. The existing conditions are 3.393 acres. with one road frontage. Again, to recap on CVS access, that is not a Town of Avenue road, it's actually private property. The only road frontage that this parcel benefits from is along North Poplar, and I think that's important to note. The property is in my opinion, lightly wooded. Does have some trees and foliage, but I would not go so far as to say it's heavily wooded, and it is undeveloped. The topo is relatively flat with about 8 feet of elevation change throughout the property. The property again fronts North Poplar Street along the eastern line with approximately 516 feet of road frontage, which is very large in my professional opinion, very large road frontage. While the road is classified as a major thoroughfare, as it is an NCDOT road and is former US 1, it's important to note that there are adjacent land uses, primarily residential, across the street, and that is of note. However, there's also commercial uses north towards the Johnson Street intersection, a mere 300 feet from this parcel. To the north, again, is the undeveloped large parcel with the water tower, and there's several businesses to the west of this parcel that all front Sand Hills Boulevard, along with Furniture of the Pines and CVS. That's roughly the existing conditions. The layout, as proposed by the applicant, is for a one-story building for what the new UDO classifies as a vehicle establishment minor. It's basically a establishment that serves vehicles. It does not sell or lease, nor does it maintain or provide major body work or major engine repair. That's roughly what the UDO says. So it's definitely a vehicle establishment minor in the eyes and the intent of the UDO. The property is proposing 2 points of ingress/egress. Their major entrance and their main entrance, and I've had several discussions, and I'll let the applicant speak more to this. Their major entrance is to the top of the page, and they fully expect to serve all of their customers through this entrance. They do have a second proposed rear entrance, which we're calling rear, to North Poplar, which they hope to use for testing out of vehicles and for service entrance only. They do not anticipate or expect or even advocate for any customers, to my knowledge, using that rear entrance to get into or out of the property. As such, the property is expected to have one space per 400 square feet of gross floor area and sales. We do not currently, to my knowledge, have the building plan, so we don't quite know how many parking spaces that is, but they are roughly in the ballpark with the first submittal of their site plan of what we expect, again, with the ongoing conversations that we've had. The applicant, again, touching back to the second requirement of the conditional zoning from 2017, requires that they maintain and bolster, if needed, a 30-foot vegetated buffer along North Poplar. That is more than the current UDO would require along the only street frontage, which I believe is 8 feet minimum, 10-foot average, 12-foot maximum. So it's more significant of a buffer that we conditioned back in 2017 for this property, which obviously the applicant cannot waive. The extent is to meet the screening and landscaping requirements, and it shall have to be supplemented if what they have existing does not meet the requirements of the UDO. Also, along other sections, specifically Chapter 5 of the UDO, the applicant will be required to meet all standards. And to give you a brief history on the new UDO does have significantly bolstered standards, particularly with landscaping, building design, and lighting, which were not addressed in the old UDO, at least as much as it is now, specifically lighting. So the Chapter 5 hopefully will take care of a lot of concerns for this use backing up to residential, maybe not all of them, but it will significantly address them more so than what the conditional zoning addressed or the old UDO. The transportation, again, there's 2 points of access points for the development. Staff has worked with the applicant, as I mentioned earlier, about concerns raised during the rezoning. One of the things that I decided to do was research the minutes as well as the case back in 2017. I was not here, obviously, but I did need to understand what was said, what was agreed to, and what was discussed. I also researched the minutes and read over the notes provided by the applicant in 2017 for the required community meeting. And we have been working with the applicant ever since this came about a couple of months ago, and they reached back out to move forward with this project. Staff believes the applicant will install a gate at North Poplar Street, which will be secured outside of business hours. Again, this entrance is expected, at least in my eyes, and the applicant can correct me if I'm wrong, that the gate will only be used by staff and deliveries if necessary. However, it will be closed outside of normal business hours. It will also and locked. Staff has also had discussions with the applicant regarding installing speed humps through the property to discourage anybody who may disregard the signs and want to cut through from Poplar to Sand Hills or vice versa. Again, it's important to note in my eyes that as somebody who does cut through certain businesses to begrudgingly, if it was me, you know, we do have the Johnson Street corridor that goes through Poplar to Sand Hills a mere 200 to 300 feet away. So that's important to know. But the applicant has been gracious enough to explore other ideas. One of the ones that we talked about yesterday was the possibility of having one circulation around the building, so it discourages people from cutting through and zipping through as fast as quickly as possible, which I believe was one of the largest concerns in the 27 rezoning, as well as the public meeting the applicant was required to do. The environmental, as per our normal SOP, we use the Green Grove toolbox. Staff has not identified any watershed concerns on this project parcel. The comprehensive land plan, which we adopted in 2019 of January 2019, we did identify that this is a mixed use, or the plan identified this parcel as mixed use. And as such, it went on to define that as an environment where convenient shopping and service facilities exist by promoting compact development of commercial, office, and service uses mixed with residential uses. These are intended to preserve Albertine's residential and historic surrounding residential and commercial districts, but allow for rich mixture of diverse land uses. Compatible districts include the B3, which got converted to O&I, and mixed-use corridor overlay, which the town of Aberdeen no longer utilizes in our UDO. Staff believes that this is generally consistent with the land development future land use map, as well as 3 goals of the, I believe, 10 goals of the comprehensive land development plan. Goal number 1, in all decisions and actions, Aberdeen will consider the impact on Aberdeen's future as a progressive, welcoming, stable community. By having this special use meeting and getting the planning board's recommendation prior to taking this board commissioner, staff feels that goal number 1 is met. Goal number 5, Aberdeen will, through land development ordinance, provide inventory of options for industrial and business development. Again, adding to that inventory, staff feels that goal is met with this plan. Goal 7 is Aberdeen will support infill development as an action essential to continued development. Again, as this property is largely surrounded by already developed property, staff feels that utilizing this property as proposed meets goal 7. Staff also feels, though, that it's important to note the proposal may conflict with at least one goal of this plan, which is goal number 6. Aberdeen will consider preservation of residential neighborhoods in the decision-making process, which we feel the planning board will take into consideration, as well as the board of commissioners, as it is a special use permit. Staff believes the proposal, while appearing to conflict with that the verbiage, is in line with mixed-use development, as I previously read, along a major thoroughfare such as North Poplar Street, which is considered a major thoroughfare, as it is the former US 1, and as soon as US 1 starts to ramp up construction, Poplar Street is going to see additional traffic regardless. Also, the town benefits from major water and sewer mains running down Poplar from Southern Pines all the way to downtown Aberdeen. The procedure issues, touch base on that, not to go too much into detail, but the conditional zoning required when a conditional use permit was to be sought. In rewriting the UDO, the town of Aberdeen and the UDO did not allow for conditional use permits to be further used or utilized as an avenue to develop. As such, we had high-level conversations with the town attorney regarding what the next step would be. Obviously, we didn't just want to waive the requirement of the conditional zoning, but we can't make them go through a process we no longer utilize. So as such, the town attorney recommended, and we took to the board of commissioners who agreed that this was to be converted from a CUP requirement to an SUP requirement. Now, in layman's forms, that's not really much of a change. It's changing name only. The 5 standards that I'm aware of that are required for special use permit are the same 5 standards required by conditional use permit, as well as both processes require quasi-judicial procedures. So staff feels, backed by the town attorney and the board of commissioners, that replacing the SUP or the CUP process with an SUP was in line with the intent of what was approved in 2017. Also, as such, the state is on its way of abolishing CUPs anyways, so that was going to run its course eventually. The procedure is you'll make a recommendation to the Board of Commissioners. The Board of Commissioners then holds a quasi-judicial hearing to be named later. And as such, conditions of approval shall meet or exceed the minimum requirements of the UDO and shall be limited to those deemed necessary to ensure compliance with the review standards of this type of application, to prevent or minimize adverse effects from the proposed development or surrounding lands. They shall be both related in both type and amount to the anticipated impacts of the proposed development on the public and surrounding development. As such, there are the 5 requirements I mentioned earlier of the special use permit, which is 1, will not materially endanger the public health or safety if located where possible, where proposed. 2, complies with standards, conditions, and specs of the ordinance, specifically Chapter 4 uses. Number 3, will not substantially injure the value of the abutting land or the special use as a public necessity. 4, will be in harmony with the area to which it's located. And number 5 is generally in conformity with the town's adopted policy guidance, which in this case is the comprehensive plan. Staff does have recommended motions, which, Ms. Chairman, if you'd like to go all on that, we can. But there are 7 motions that, I apologize, I misspoke earlier, but there are 7 motions that we can go through. I can put them on the screen so we can follow along if you would like when we get to that point. It's generally now a good time to go through the staff recommended conditions, which is the first one's boilerplate. The SUP will run with the land for this particular parcel, and any amendment to the SUP will need proper changes, including removing it from the SUP. 2 is the planning inspection department shall be notified of any new uses, activities, significant site changes, and construction on the property subject to this special use, and all applicable reviews and/or permits and inspections will be obtained in accordance with the UDO. And 3, a gate or similar feature will be installed at the rear entrance to Poplar Street, and speed humps will be installed in the parking lot at the locations to be determined by the TRC, Technical Review Committee, to deter cut-through traffic. Ms. Chairwoman, if it's okay with you, I would like to entertain any questions to staff, and if there are none, then I would gladly turn this over to Mr. Allen Hill, Mr. David Bowling, and Ms. Sally Thomas for their fill in the blanks, any clarifications that they need to make on my presentation, or any additional information they'd like to share with you. We have a PowerPoint that they emailed me. Might take me a second to pull up, but I'd be happy to share that with you and them, and hopefully we'll be able to have them speak through the Zoom meeting. I'll double check with you and make sure we can do that. Was there any questions with me?
Maybe it's not a question, but can we put an asterisk beside something for the site review committee about lighting? Because we want to make sure that that's, extremely scrutinized, I think, for the neighborhood.
I would be happy to, I think it would be more pertinent prior towards putting conditions
Okay.
of the lighting to know what those lighting standards are. I would be happy to go over that with this board when you all would like.
Well, my only thing is that, I know the UDO has lighting standards, right?
Yes, ma'am, that's correct.
And so we just want to make sure the light doesn't encroach into the neighborhood.
Absolutely.
And there are places recently built where that's not been monitored very well. So
Well,
it's been brought to my attention.
sure, and that's a fair point. As long as we understand that the lighting standards did not come into online until January 1st of this year. So any site plans that were submitted to staff prior to that worked under the old UDO. So any new properties coming online recently were not subject to those same standards. So I don't know that monitor is the appropriate word.
But this will come under the new one. right?
You're exactly
Okay,
right.
That's the
Any
only
new
thing
site-
we can be concerned
Yes,
about
ma'am.
here.
Yes, ma'am. And any new site plans from this day forward, maybe not revisions,
I
but
think,
any new site plans.
my
will
point
have-
is, I just didn't want that to kind of slip under the
Absolutely.
door, without being,
That's
without
a,
being addressed.
that's a very fair point. And if you would allow me to, briefly go over the exterior lighting standards. Obviously, the applicability would stand because this is a new use of land as well as a new building. So they're gonna have to meet all the standards. The prohibited lighting are traffic control signals, anything that mimics a traffic control signal, flashing or revolving lighting, high intensity lighting, which is designed as searchlights, lasers, strobe lights, any architectural lighting, which we threw in there so they cannot outline this building. If you've seen up and down US 1, people put rope lighting on the inside of their windows. That is now prohibited. They will not be allowed to do that. Furthermore, we also took it a step further. For example, Chick-fil-A and Burger King utilizes red bands around the top of their buildings. Those are now prohibited as well. So the look of the building by use of light is restricted as part of this. Furthermore, the applicant is aware and comments were made and they are working on it. A photometric study will have to be submitted to staff for review as part of the site plan approval. What that is a lighting engineer will have to provide to staff a handful of things. First and foremost, the fixture type. We need to know what kind of bulbs they're using and what kind of lumens or foot candles they put out. Secondly, we need to know what type of pole height, because there are limits on the types or the heights of poles that we allow for lighting. And third, more importantly, fixture shielding. They have to be full cut off and shoebox. They cannot be an LED light that is oriented at a 45-degree angle shining into the parking lot. We do not allow that anymore. In fact, staff has actually started to enforce these on existing properties where we can,
You
such
covered my
as,
concerns.
yes, ma'am. As such, we also have the lighting engineer provide a photometric study to prove that with those three criteria, the lighting levels will be at a minimum at the property lines. Those minimums are based on the adjacent uses. So for example, when you are vacant, you're adjacent to a residential use or vacant land zoned for residential uses, you have a maximum of 1 foot candle at the property line. To give you an example of how bright that is, that's not very bright. Under a gas canopy, you're talking about upwards of beyond 50-foot candles. And those are measured, I believe, in foot increments or 5 feet, I can't remember. But regardless, we will not approve any lighting plan that exceeds that. Institutional uses are 1.5, and it goes up all the way to 2.5 foot candles at the property line. That's also measured at a 6-foot height. So we're not going to measure it down to the ground or way up in the sky where the lighting is not intense. We're measuring it. I'm not going to say average because I'm 5'8", but it's measured at a 6-foot height. Also, light trespass, we don't allow any outdoor fixtures that exceed 2,000 lumens. Wall packs, and so not just holes. Lighting on the building actually has to be shielded and full cutoff as well. Floodlights are prohibited. The light source and the bulb cannot be seen from the property lines or off-site. So all these rules we did not have, to my knowledge, in place in the old UDO. The applicant is, number one, aware, and number two, we'll have to meet that. Is that sufficiently to answer your
Yes,
question?
absolutely.
Was there any other questions? Yes, ma'am. Ms. Ennis?
Can you please clarify where the entrance will be for the customers?
Yes, ma'am. The main entrance for the customer will be highlighted. Sorry, Zoom takes a second. By these 3 lanes at the top of the screen, you see 2 arrows coming down. Those are 2 entrance lanes, access lanes to the property, and there's 1 exit lane going to the north. That property on the other side of those arrows is the CVS access road we were talking about earlier, and that road essentially dead ends right into this property, so they'll basically turn that into the driveway and the main entrance of Thomas Tire.
Is that what you, okay. Is the diagonal bar, that looks like maybe it goes from a front door back out to, is that one of your speed bumps? The
No.
hash marked diagonal bar there?
Yes, ma'am. No, the hash mark that you're looking at is required by ADA and ANSI.
Oh, it's a crosswalk.
Yes,
I
ma'am, it's a
see.
crosswalk.
I couldn't read
The speed bumps have not been
the.
worked out their exact locations with the applicant, but we are expecting them to have them. And the site plan did not have that.
Can you indicate where the Washington Street dead end is?
Yes, ma'am. One more.
Oh, I see now.
Who's Jason? Okay. Yep, so the Washington Street right of way does dead end in this parcel.
I see.
And I believe, again, this is what I've been told, that it was originally always supposed to cut through, but for some reason or another it did not. And maybe the applicant knows more than I do. But at this point, that's not something that this request can mitigate or
Well, I
require.
understand.
Yes, ma'am.
All right.
So that section, when you go from whatever the name of that road is on Washington and cut around behind those buildings, you come out and besides CVS, that's not actually a road, that's just back of the buildings.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
What's our next step?
If it pleases the board, I would highly recommend to hear from Mr. Allen Hill, Mr. David Bowling, Ms. Sally Thomas to fill in any gaps, clarify anything I said, and give their presentation if that's okay with y'all.
Yep.
Okay. I'm going to double check with our IT to make sure that the volume will come through on Triad Design Group as they are all remoting in, and make sure we can do that before we proceed. I also need to pull up their PowerPoint. So if you'll bear with me for just 2 seconds.
Sure. Yeah, thanks.
Bro, I have one. Cane, trade your cane for number. It usually happens twice a day. Irritates my wife no end.
You can't help it.
No,
You can't help it. So you just have to.
what I've learned is no matter how smoothly you try to swallow, if your throat doesn't cooperate, it's no problem.
Probably a lot better than what they got, because they got, they're so tight. Good traffic, I'm sure.
If y'all could stay in the discussion until, I apologize. All right, unfortunately, we might have missed technical glitch. With regards to being able to hear remote speakers.
PowerPoint will speak a lot for itself. He needs to put it up, it answers every question they have. It's just been slightly changed. What we put on it in the actual aerial view greatly shows the screen, shows the traffic by me. It'll really lay out for when you got that right there.
Y'all just do such a really good job on it.
All right. Mr. Hale, can you hear us?
Yeah, Justin, we can hear you very well.
Excellent. It's up to you all on how you want to proceed. If you would like to dive into your PowerPoint, or if you want to speak from the cuff, it's up to you.
Justin, I think we can go ahead and go forward with the PowerPoint, and I'm going to turn it over to Sally Thomas. She's going to be doing the narrating, and then if there's anything needs to be added, then David Bowling or myself will step in at that time. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Hi, good evening. My name is Sally Thomas. I am the owner and president of JP Thomas. You would know us as Thomas Tire and Automotive. We have had a location in Aberdeen open at 1300 North Sand Hills Boulevard, which is right down the street from this site that we're talking about this evening. We've had that in operation since 1988, so about 32 years of service in your community. It has been a long-term goal of ours to be able to have a better experience for both our customers as well as our employees. And we feel very certain that this proposed building and site would be able to do both of those things. Currently, our hours of operation before COVID was Monday through Friday, 7:30 to 5:30, Saturday, 7:30 to noon. During this, we have reduced hours to Monday through Friday, 7:30 to 5:30. In 2019, we served over 25,000 customers. Breaking that down, that's about 2,100 a month or 90 a day based on a 23-day work month. So far in 2020, we are averaging around 1,875 customers a month, or 81 a day. Our total employed at this location is around 20 employees. And I just really appreciate your time this evening, and I'm going to turn it over to our project manager, David Bowling.
Yeah. Good evening. I am David Bowen, the project manager for J.H. Batten, who is the design builder for this project. We have been working with the town of Aberdeen for the last 3 years on the project, along with the Thomases. If we could move, Sally spoke to slide 2, and we could move past slide 2 and move on to slide 3. I think that will help with the orientation. If you'll move one more slide, thank you. As she was describing, they're currently located approximately 800 feet from the new site. You might see in the bottom right corner the blue dot that represents where they currently are now. And closer to the center of the PowerPoint that you see is the proposed new location, right behind the CVS and Aldi's there. This property is within 300 feet of Johnson Street and about a couple hundred feet from the donut, Granny's Donuts. We feel like that the site is horseshoe with other common businesses that would be, we would be in harmony with those. And the question was asked earlier about where the main entrance is. As you're looking now, you would enter off of Sand Hills Boulevard, traveling into the property, moving upward to the location there. We'll move into other slides in a moment that will even help. In fact, the next slide, if you'd like to move to it, is the site plan with revisions. And if you could zoom into the front drive, you will notice we have changed some arrows on the site plan to help with the traffic flow, to minimize any potential for someone wanting to cut through. You'll also know we're focusing our traffic either to the rear of the building, coming around the right side, or the express loop, or if it's regular maintenance, we would come up underneath the canopy in one direction. As you move to the right of the slide that you're looking at now, you will notice zooming in on the parking area, getting toward the rear drive. We've actually have put markings on the pavement to say do not enter. It would be our intent that customers or other cars coming through would be a stopping point there, that they're not, move toward the rear drive. And this would probably be the area that I would imagine that staff might recommend speed humps if they were needed as you move to the rear drive and so forth. So the rear drive, again, is intended for service use, and we're focusing our traffic back out to Sand Hills Boulevard. So it comes in from Sand Hills and departs back out through Sand Hills Boulevard. If we can move to the next few slides, you'll see what the building may look like. And then the final slide, I think, will give you a much better aerial view. This was what we'll call front elevation if you're coming in the drive from Sand Hill Boulevards. This is one perspective. And if you move to the next slide, you'll see another perspective of the front of the building. And you can see the entrance drive. You'll see the canopy that we're focused on, and where cars will typically come in and drive, or to the right of the building to come into the express loop. And where you see express loop written, that will be the exit point for the vehicles, which would naturally be a flow to go back out to Sand Hill Boulevard. As you move to the final slide, this will give you a very good aerial view, and I think it helps with the perspective of both the rear entrance, the Sand Hill Boulevard entrance, and probably gives you a much better perspective of how the building would lay in relationship to other commercial development around us. You will note the large 30-foot buffer. So you can see we do significantly screen, if not completely screen, the building from the residential area with that buffer. And I think that hopefully would answer most questions raised this evening, and certainly with the lighting, it would be in compliance with the UDO, which I think would meet your objectives of minimizing or actually curtailing any light pollution. And it's not our intent to light the building up in the evening, other than just what is minimally needed for just general security purposes, and certainly what would be in harmony again with the UDO. I don't know if Alan would like to add anything to our comments at this time, but that's pretty much our presentation for this evening. I think we're good, Justin, with that, unless the board would have any questions.
Anybody have any questions based on what we've seen?
Why do we have to have a rear entrance?
Why?
I would defer to the applicant at that point.
Well, the rear entrance to, if you will, bottleneck us with both customer traffic and then the occasional service vehicle. Right now, the business as it operates does use Poplar Street for the occasional test vehicle, which is about 1/4 of the vehicles a day, roughly about 20 cars spread across about 8 to 10 hours of service. So it's not high traffic at all. It allows that service person to get back into the building without conflicting with other cars and things coming in. And we do have a concern without that second drive. And what we understand it will be the modifications to US 1. It's going to significantly impede the business without that. But again, it's not for focus of customers. It's for servicing of vehicles or delivery trucks that would come in, which are a low volume, but it's just that occasional truck and not having conflict. And then, you know, another point to make is if there was ever an accident or other emergency events going on, to only have one bottled entrance in, emergency vehicles may not be able to get in or get out of the property. And so we do feel like that it would be important to that. Any other commercial development on the site that is allowed by your UDO could have very well multiple entrances, and we're only seeking one, again, for basic service needs. And we do think it promotes greatly the emergency vehicle access to the property.
Anybody else have a question or something? I guess we've exhausted the need for questions at this point.
Yes, ma'am. Okay. So with that, we can do a handful of things. Well, two. We can either listen to the motions and get a good understanding of that, or we can, if there's one applicant that has spoken or that would like to speak to y'all tonight about this project. It's up to y'all on which route you want to go. I would recommend that we hear from the applicant first before we make a motion and deliberate and then move forward with motions, or at least deliberate and then move forward with motions.
Okay.
Is that all right?
That's good.
A little louder than normal.
Okay,
Sarah?
I was just here mostly to listen to see,
I apologize. If you could state your name and your address.
oh,
Sorry.
okay. You want my home address or the address for which I'm concerned?
Is the address for which you're concerned yours?
Mhm.
Yes, that one. That's fine.
Linda Pope, let's see, 1704 North Poplar Street. So I was just concerned about the traffic on the Poplar and, you know, safety concerns and things like that. I have to tell you, I couldn't hear well in there, so some of it maybe have been addressed, I couldn't hear. I personally like Thomas Tire. I think they're good business. But it does concern me, the traffic that's gonna go back out onto Poplar. That was the only thing. It sounds like the majority of traffic, they're trying to get back on the US 1. I wish that they would utilize Washington Street, but I don't know why that's not being utilized as the out. you know, that is a street already, that's, you know, commercial. So, I'm glad they're trying to keep it to a minimum, but that is my only concern. So I was more here just to hear about where the traffic was gonna go and what the impact would be on the residential community across the street there. So,
And maybe you heard that this is not a decision-making board, that'll come, we can only recommend, and then the town board will actually make the decision and hear traffic studies and,
okay,
evidence. And
right,
Justin's got the rules of evidence, experts and, people, people like that. You may want to,
yeah,
to bring in, if you're worried about property values and safety concerns and things like that, you might want to bring those people to the town board meeting and get them on that agenda.
okay, so this is gonna be again.
When is that meeting, Justin? That's the actual decision-making thing. We just hear it and we're filters.
Right.
We're not the end stops.
Like I said, I think Thomas Tower's a great business. I'd like to see it there too. I wish that out was going out on Washington Street and down through an already existing commercial area rather than out on a residential area.
Well,
And I am concerned because there's a lot of foot traffic and bicycles and things and children in homes across the street,
Yeah.
all of these homes was 500 and whatever square, 500 and whatever it was, feet, 570 frontage on North Poplar. I know that that's not the width of the driveway, but that was my only concern. So I hope there'll be minimal impact, really. So I didn't really realize what kind of.
we appreciate you coming. We appreciate your concern.
And Ms. Chairman, to answer your question, the quasi-judicial hearing for the Board of Commissioners will be June 22nd at 6 p.m.
And to get on that agenda, you would have to,
Show up, the town clerk has sign forms similar to.
so you don't have to pre-register to
No, ma'am.
appear.
No, ma'am.
Okay.
Okay, well, I think I learned something, so I appreciate it.
Yes, ma'am.
Any additional questions?
Appreciate it.
What's next?
Motions, unless you'll have any further questions of staff.
I don't, and I know it's normally my job to read them.
Yes, ma'am. If
Can
you'd
I
like
defer
do
to you to
that,
read them, or?
You can, I'll put them on the screen so everybody can
Okay.
see them.
I'm not really good at reading that screen.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right. I'll wait till you get them up and then we'll start.
All right. I'll read them for sake of clarity. Again, this is our first time going through this specific process, although it should feel familiar. Motion 1, SU 2001 is or is not within the jurisdiction of the planning board according to the table of permissible uses. Motion 2, SU 2001 is or is not completed as submitted. Motion 3, SU 2021-01 satisfies or does not satisfy finding number 1, which is will not materially endanger the public health or safety if located where proposed. If it does not satisfy, the motion should include why. Motion number 4, SU 2001 satisfies or does not satisfy finding number 2, which the use complies with all required standards, conditions, and specifications of the Unified Development Ordinance. Again, if it does not satisfy, the motion should include why it does not. Motion number 5, SU 2001 satisfies or does not satisfy finding number 3, that the use will be in harmony with the area to which it's located. Again, if it does not satisfy that motion or that finding number 3, the motion needs to include why. Motion number 6, SU 2001 satisfies or does not satisfy finding number 4, that the use will be in general conformity with the town's adopted policy guidance. Again, if the finding is not satisfied, whoever makes the motion should include why. And motion number 7, the final motion, which is based on findings of fact, which are the four motions, that the evidence presented to the planning board, that the board recommends denial of SU 2001 based on the following, which should be the motions on why it did not meet, recommends approval or recommends approval with conditions. And Ms. Chairwoman, those are the 7 motions. Again, I read those 3 conditions, if you'd like me to go over that
No, I
as
think,
well.
well, I think we have that. Those are the boilerplate ones we always get, right?
The motions with the,
Conditions.
or I'm sorry, no. The first 2 are boilerplate that are typical before SUPs and CUPs before the board. However, the third one is a staff request one, again, with the support of Ms. Thomas, Mr. Bowling, Mr. Hill. We feel that this is appropriate, and they've agreed in principle on this condition that a gate or similar feature will be installed at the rear entrance to North Poplar Street, and speed humps will be installed in the parking lot at locations to be determined by the technical review committee to
Okay,
deter cut through traffic. That is unique.
all right. Motion number 1, do I hear
Could you pull
Yes, sir, I apologize. It's a little slow.
SU 2001 is or is not within the jurisdiction of this board?
make the motion that it is?
Second,
So Mr. Pomerantz made the motion, Mr. Pravat seconded.
all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
If you could let the record show that that was unanimous.
All right. Motion number 2, SU 2001 is or is not complete as submitted.
I move that it is complete.
All right. Motion by Ms. Hines, is there a second?
I second that.
Second by Mrs. Allred. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Carries unanimously. Motion 3, SU 2001 satisfies or does not satisfy finding 1, will not materially endanger public health or safety if located where proposed. Do I hear a motion?
Make motion, SU 2001 satisfies.
All right, motion by Mr. Pravat, second.
Second.
Second by Mr. Pomerantz. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Carries unanimously. Motion 4, SU 2001 satisfies or does not satisfy finding 2, complies with all required standards, conditions, and specifications in UDO, if not, list why. Here.
Make a motion that it satisfies.
I
Motion,
second that.
motion by Mr. Pomerantz, second by Mrs. Allred. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Carries unanimously. Number 5, SU 2001 satisfies or does not satisfy finding 3 will be in harmony with the area in which it's located.
Make
SU,
motion, SU 2001 satisfies. Number 3.
Number 5, we're on, Bill.
I mean,
Finding number 3.
Oh, yes, finding number 3, I'm sorry. All right, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I second that.
Second by Mrs. Allred. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
I oppose.
1 opposed?
Ms. Diane.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. I want to say ayes, I'm sorry.
Ms.
Okay.
Diane Ennis opposes.
All right, number 6. SU 2001 satisfies or does not satisfy finding 4 will be in general conformity with the town's adopted policy guidance.
I apologize, I'm sorry.
Do we have to get a why because we had an opposed?
No, ma'am, because she wasn't the one who made the motion.
Okay,
So I'll take that heat if that's not the case.
All right.
No, I apologize. I wanted to double check, but continue. You're fine.
okay, we're on 6, I believe. Satisfies or does not satisfy finding 4 will be in general conformity. We hear a motion for that?
Make a motion that it satisfies.
Second that.
All right, motion by Mr. Pomerantz, seconded by, who did you hear first? I don't know. Mr. Pratt.
That's fine.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Number 7, based on the findings of fact and the evidence presented, the planning board recommends denial, approval, or approval with conditions. Do we hear a motion?
Make a motion that Make a motion, we recommend it with conditions, approval with conditions.
Motion by Mr. Palmer, and a second.
Second.
Were there any additional conditions that you wanted to make, Mr. Palmer? Just the staff recommend?
Yes.
Excellent, thank you. And Mr. Levack, you are seconding that, correct?
Second, yes.
Perfect, thank you.
All right, the motion's on the floor to approve with the conditions stated in staff report. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right.
Okay. We will get this on the June 22nd Board of Commissioners meeting at 6 p.m. for that docket and pass along y'all's recommendation as such.
Justin, this is Alan Hill,
Yes, sir.
Sally and David. Thank you very much for your hard work, and we want to thank the board. Appreciate it.
And we'll see y'all in June, hopefully.
Sounds good, sir. Thank you.
you.
All right, so we are down to the item 4B, Neil Smith text amendment.
We're gonna take just 2 seconds. I'm gonna make sure that the applicant actually is in person for this one.
Okay.
We're gonna see how exactly we're gonna do that, and if y'all could just bear with me, I appreciate it.
So am I going first? Or is Justin?
Justin's leading the, he'll introduce you, I suppose.
And
Oh, he just asked where we go next.
these are, take a seat real quick. I'll go through my staff report when Mr. Palmer comes back, and then we'll give you the ability to give your speech. Is that all right? Do you have anything you want to present to the board or any PowerPoints that we need to load up for you? Excellent. Okay. Ready to go?
Ready to go.
Okay. The next case, Mr. Chairwoman, is the text amendment 2002. The applicant is Neil Smith Engineering, Neil Smith specifically. They submitted a text amendment to add flea market and antique mall indoor use type, as well as retail sales large use type to the permitted table of uses by right zoning or light industrial zoning district. The applicant has added some protections to these use types being added to the zoning district by limiting them from establishing parcels less than 35 acres in size in the LI zoning district. These proposed changes would allow both use types to establish in an industrial zoning district with caveats. Presently, the use type is prohibited in the LI zoning district. The adoption of UDO in 2020, parcels were converted from their existing zoning districts to the new, as we stated in the last case. These new zoning districts were classified and grouped in 3 different types: residential zoning, business zoning, and special zoning districts. Other zoning districts do exist, however, such as conditional zoning and planned development zoning districts. However, the 3 that I previously mentioned of residential, business, and special are our 3 base zoning districts within the town's jurisdiction. Light industrial zoning district classifies as a business district. The LI district is defined as light manufacturing, assembly, fabrication, processing, distribution, storage, wholesale sales, research and development, and other industrial uses that are small scale and in minimal exterior movements of vehicles, materials, and goods, and have minimal visual impacts. It also allows for commercial activities intended to serve the primary business in the districts and their employers, as well as multifamily, retail, and personal services establishments as adapted reuses of existing buildings. The use was also reorganized such as zoning districts. As such, in the principal use table, section 419. In this table, the use is organized into something called classifications, use classifications, which breaks down into 5 different categories. Use categories, which goes into further drills down, and then finally use types, which is the actual use that staff determines for a potential business or potential tenant of a building. So for example, you can have a wide variety of residential uses. However, it is different between multifamily residential, and those are signified by the use types, not so much the classifications or categories. As such, a classification is actually defined as the land use, which includes agricultural, residential, institutional, commercial, and industrial uses. So those are the 5 categories of classifications. They are further broken down into actual categories, which can be defined as subgroups and are based on common function, product, and physical characteristics, such as customers or residents, how goods and services are sold or delivered, and site conditions. For example, previously I mentioned residential use classifications has common elements, household living, group living, and life care categories. The categories can be broken down into use types. A use type is considered to fall within characteristics identified in the category and are very specific, such as family care homes, live-work dwellings, manufactured dwellings, multifamily dwellings, single-family dwellings. Those are all separate use types. A flea market and antique mall indoor is organized in a commercial use classification with a retail sales category, and while a retail sales large use type is also within the commercial use classification and the retail sales category. The retail sales category can be roughly defined as sale, lease, or rent of newer use products primarily intended for the general public. Flea market use types can be described as goods are offered for sale to the general public by individual sellers from open or rented spaces. Accessory uses may include parking, concessions, and restrooms, and indoor storage. Retail sales specifically is described as the establishment to sell goods directly to the consumer where they're available for immediate purchase and removal by the purchaser. Examples include video stores, which we don't have anymore, bicycle sales, bookstores, clothing stores, and the like. Retail sales large. There are 3 different types of retail sales uses. There's retail sales large, retail sales major, retail sales minor. It's important to note that retail sales minor is an approved by right use in the LI zoning district. However, major and large are not. The difference is a retail establishment up to 4,000 square feet is classified as a minor. Beyond that, up to 50,000 square feet is a major, and beyond that is large. Also, large has a caveat of 150,000 square feet of gross area. So for example, if you were to take a 49,000 square foot retail use in a shopping center and put it with 3 other uses that exceeded that 150,000 square foot, we would classify that property as retail sales large, even though nothing exceeds 50,000 square feet. So that's important to know. It did come up of, could somebody do a whole bunch of 4,000 square foot uses in a 600,000 square foot building? No, we do have a cap of 150,000 square feet, or a threshold, I should say, that vaults you into retail sales large. So there's not a way around that, and we specifically built that in on purpose. So with that saying, the existing ordinance does not allow for flea market, antique mall, indoor use type, which is a separate use type from retail sales, and it does not allow retail sales large. The request tonight by Neil Smith Engineering is to add both of those uses to the principal use table for LI zoning district, and with the caveat of 35 acres or larger. As this is a text amendment, this rule applies to all LI zoning districts within the town. It does not apply to one parcel or 2 or a handful. It will apply to all. The proposed amendment is to help protect the LI zoning district. The applicant has added that 35 acres is limiting the number of parcels in the LI zoning district, and as such provides some sort of protections for very large scale LI zoning, large scale in terms of size, LI parcels. The consistency with planning. The comprehensive land plan defines industrial use category as an establishment or protected industrial areas for use in industrial operations and distribution of products at wholesale. These areas require excellent access to transportation, including rail and availability of essential infrastructure such as water, sewer, and gas. A text amendment requires, furthermore, a recommendation by the planning board, to which then it goes to the board of commissioners for final adoption. The application should state that a uniform means for a text amendment is a uniform means for amending the text of the UDO, or Unified Development Ordinance, whenever there's a public necessity, changed conditions, convenience, general welfare, or appropriate land use practices justify or require in doing so. As such, the review and the recommendation by the planning board shall be considered for the application, relevant support materials, the staff report, and any public comments to be required. Members shall conduct a review and provide a recommendation with no prejudice, no commitment prior to review, acknowledging any information obtained outside the public meeting has influenced their decision, and refrain from deliberating of the decision. Following this recommendation, obviously, the Board of Commissioners will schedule a public hearing for the application. The five criteria to which review a specific text amendment, like for example tonight, is 1, is it consistent with the town's adopted policy guidance? 2, is not in, I'm sorry, there's more than 5. It cuts off. 2, is not in conflict with any provisions of the UDO or the town code of ordinances. 3, is required by changed conditions. 4, addresses demonstrated community need. 5, addresses an unforeseen matter not present with the UDO when it was adopted. 6, consistent with the purpose and intent of the zoning district itself and this UDO, and would improve compatibility among uses and ensure efficient development within the town. 7, would result in a logical and orderly development pattern. And 8, would not result in significant adverse impacts to the natural environment, including but not limited to water, air, noise, stormwater management, wildlife, vegetation, and the nature functioning of the environment, natural functioning of the environment. As such, staff has made the recommendations that while the client and staff has met several times regarding a specific piece of property, it's important to note that this text amendment before you tonight will not just affect one parcel. It will affect all light industrial in the town of Aberdeen. And as such, staff has conveyed to the applicant at least twice that a more appropriate route to get the retail uses that you seek on your parcel would be your rezoning. For reasons that were not expressed to staff, this was not an option for the applicant. So therefore, that's why they are seeking a text amendment for the entire UDO. In staff's opinion, a map amendment would be more surgical and appropriate with the result the applicant is actually seeking, and would avoid a town-wide amendment that staff feels is only beneficial for a property in question and does not feel basic planning and zoning principles are met. Furthermore, staff decided to look at the 8 criteria to which this is reviewed upon and has added the following comments. Is it consistent with the adopted policy guidance? Staff does not feel that this text amendment is consistent with the town's guidance, such as the comprehensive land plan, as that plan calls for protection of industrial areas. And in staff's opinion, adding large-scale retail operations to industrial areas is not protecting. In fact, it will erode the stated intention of that zoning district. 2, is not conflict with any other UDO provisions or code of ordinance provisions. Staff believes that by adding large-scale retail to an industrial district is in conflict with the provisions of the zoning district as defined in the UDO. Staff further believes that such an additional use type is in conflict with the intent of the other zoning districts utilized by the UDO. These uses are allowed in other parts of town: general commercial, office institutional, neighborhood commercial. It does not protect them any more than it protects LI by adding it to any zoning district. The reason why we have zoning districts is to make sure that the town grows in a consistent and responsible manner with regards to where things are located. By adding every zoning district to every use to every zoning district, which is not what the applicant's intending to do, but it is a slippery slope. We might as well just not have zoning districts. I know that seems extreme, but again, like I said, it's a slippery slope. Number 3 is required by changed conditions. Staff feels that the UDO was adopted and implemented in January 1st of 2020, and we see absolutely no change conditions between 6 months ago, not even to today. And as such, we think it would be premature to start amending the UDO to allow for additional use types in other zoning districts that they do not fit in staff's recommendation. Furthermore, it's in my opinion that should this have been an issue long ago, this board, the Board of Commissioners and staff did not feel that this was an appropriate change to make then, We do not feel it's an appropriate change to make now. Does it address a community need? Staff believes that the inclusion of additional retail uses does not demonstrate community need, as the town does benefit from several commercial corridors which these use types are permitted by right, such as 15501 and US 1. Furthermore, staff believes that additional areas for the use types may be needed in the future. However, map amendments would be a more appropriate approach to add these uses to areas, not full-blown text amendments to the UDO. Also, number 5, does it address unforeseen matter not present in the UDO when adopted? As we've only had this ordinance for 5 months, staff does not believe that there's been a significant amount of changes that warrants unforeseen things that we have not added in the UDO at the time of the 8-month review by planning board and other boards, as well as the adoption by the board of commissioners. Staff believes that the proposed text amendments do not address any unforeseen matter. Number 6 is consistent with the purpose and intent of zoning districts and would improve compatibility. In staff's professional opinion, adding these use types to industrial zoning is not consistent with the purpose and intent of the LI zoning district. Adding these uses does not improve compatibility, yet erodes at the uniqueness of the LI zoning district and the purpose of it. Number 7, would it result in logical and orderly development pattern? Staff believes the text amendments could hinder orderly development pattern by having many uses in a singular zoning district. Essentially, you basically make it a free-for-all in the Wild Wild West. By doing so, it erodes at the function of zoning districts at its pure core, as well as the ability to control growth along major corridors, such as light industrial corridors on 5 and 211. Staff believes that the purpose of the zoning district is to cluster these uses, such as residential clustering together, industrial uses clustering together, and retail uses clustering together. A Best Buy does not fit next to a house, and as such, staff is taking dramatic steps with zoning, previous and current staff, to make sure that Best Buys cannot establish next to residential zoning districts. There needs to be separation between these uses. By throwing other use types in one zoning district, we believe that separation will not exist any longer. By allowing these zoning districts the ability to develop an orderly pattern would be challenging for staff and the town as a whole. With a shrinking stock and parcels for industrial type uses, additional industrial zones would be needed and could create an industrial use type, and should any industrial use type seek to develop in town. Basically, we're losing our stock with LI by adding more uses that could go into it. Eventually, we will run out of LI for the purpose of LI. It will be all commercial at some point. Now, again, there's another route for that. It's called rezonings, not amendments. 8, would result in adverse impacts. Staff believes the applicant proposal would not result in significant adverse impacts to the town outside of lost industrial areas, and the town could benefit from it. It is for these reasons that I mentioned that staff cannot support this recommendation as proposed, and the request that we request you all listen to the applicant and weigh those comments from all parties involved, including, I believe there's at least 2 applicants or members of the public wishing to speak on this. And as such, I'm available for any questions prior to me turning it over to Mr. Neil Smith.
Would you go back over number 8, please?
Yes, sir. It would not result in significant adverse impacts on the natural environment, including but not limited to water, air, noise, stormwater management, wildlife, vegetation, and the natural functioning of the environment. Staff believes that, for the most part, any change to an undeveloped property is going to see adverse impacts. This change proposed by the applicant isn't going to add any more adverse impacts in our knowledge, because you're adding commercial zones to industrial. It would absolutely add adverse impacts if you were taking industrial uses, adding them to commercial. As industrial uses obviously are more of a nuisance with regards to noise, smoke, and other natural environmental factors.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Is there any other questions for staff? All right, without further ado, Mr. Neil Smith is here.
Thank you so much for your time. First of all, I'd like to start off with what we're talking about is the Goldston plant. It's the largest building in Moore County. It's 14 acres under roof, and there's also a 35,000 square foot out parcel, the design center. It's been there for years. And I've been working with the O'Malley's for years on this project, trying to get businesses to move in there and such. And they have been working on this idea of the antique mall inside for many years, or at least a couple of years. And part of that is it's an extension of the existing design center. It's there, and they want to move in and expand into part of this building. And so we've got this building, and it's light industrial, and we want to keep it light industrial. And the reason we don't want the reason we don't want to try to rezone it is, one, we want to keep light industrial, and as Justin pointed out multiple times, that we want to keep it light industrial. His feeling was that if we added these large retail use or antique mall to this space, that it would take away from that light industrial, when in fact the rest of the building is light industrial. We just have this section of building that was built in the 40s that we can't get industrial clients to move in there. Now, we could use the existing UDO, we could put a motel there. We could use the existing UDO, we could put a truck stop there. But that's not the vision that Mr. O'Malley has for that property. He wants to expand upon the existing. So now he's got a tenant there. It's been there 5 years, I believe. The design center is no longer, because the UDO changed, is no longer an approved use. She can't expand. So and again, we're not trying to get rid of light industrial. He likes the light industrial. He just wants some other options for that center part of the building where it's very low ceilings, and his other clients that are moving in there want tall storage areas, and we're trying to figure out something we can do with this small thing. And a motel doesn't seem good, and a truck stop doesn't seem good, and yes, he would love to have someone come in there and want to do warehousing, but you can't do warehousing when the ceiling is lower than this here. So it gives him a challenge, and the existing design center is doing really, really well, so they would like to expand into that and keep this operation going. But since the UDO changed January 1st, she is no longer in compliance, puts her business at risk. There is no other 35,000 square foot building to move into. Certainly we could buy, Mr. O'Malley could buy 3 or 4 blocks of the business area in Aberdeen and res it and put a 14-acre building in there where it's zoned properly and do this, but I don't think that would be wise too. So we came up with this idea, since again, we don't want to rezone it, we want to protect it, the light industrial zoning, that we would put a text amendment in that would not affect Aberdeen. And what I mean by that, there's only 4 properties in all of Aberdeen that would fit this 35 acres. And the likelihood of somebody doing this sort of thing from scratch is just very low. It would not be cost effective to do that. But since we have this existing building, we've got a use for it. We're trying to get something going on there, and I'll let them speak to it. So the point was, hey, if we write a text amendment that doesn't really affect Aberdeen and other places, where do you want a 200,000 square foot antique mall? Does it make sense to put that in the downtown in a business district, or does it make more sense to put it on a piece of property that already has this huge parking lot, has access to a major road, the building's sprinkled, there's other tenants in there, it's an extension of business that is already going on there. It just seems to make much better sense. And so by limiting it at that 35 acres, it took away most of the properties in Aberdeen in the light industrial area, and it protects you from having this happen. So again, in going over some of his points, it doesn't feel that the land use specifically calls for the protection of industrial areas, then why is he recommending that we do a zoning change? If we want to protect land industrial, why would we do a zoning change? Why would we do that? Because we like the light industrial zoning, we just want to add this use of a flea market or a antique barn like we already have out there. And so the new UDO, it was approved, and the new UDO came in, and so addresses a demonstrated community need, and they don't believe it addresses a demonstrated community need. And we believe that bringing businesses and jobs into Aberdeen, not only is a community, one, we have a community need, we have a tenant that's going to speak to this because she is out there in the design center and wants to expand with this idea, and wants to bring this in as an extension of downtown Aberdeen. It's going to affect all the local businesses. People are going to come here to this from, she's not building this to just hit this little local Aberdeen. She's building this so that other people can come as a destination, and they're going to be spending money in other places in Aberdeen. And we have this nice big lot, we have this nice parking. We're not eroding any light industrial. We're going to keep all the existing, the self-storage is staying there, the larger storage areas are staying there. Mr. O'Malley's doing a good job with talking about other people. So it seems to me that would be a logical development path, and the staff disagrees with that. And it seems to me it's logical because we already have an existing 5-year business there, 35,000 square feet, that wants to expand. There's that need. It's logical. It certainly fits to me better than a motel or a truck stop. We're just asking for an additional use that fits here that might not fit in the regular business district. They're 150,000 square feet building. There's not too many of those around, and there's not too many places in Aberdeen in the regular business district that you want 150,000 square foot real estate. I think it fits better out there, and so for those reasons, and I agree that it doesn't adversely affect, because we're not really expanding on anything that hasn't already been there, other than they've done a great job cleaning it up and getting some tenants in there. When Golson moved out, lost a lot of jobs, and at least we're bringing back some jobs and working on that. So with that, I will answer any questions before I let my clients come in and speak as well.
Anyone?
Yeah, I have a question. What are the other 3 properties?
There was Carolina Power and Light was one of them, and then one of them was a Upchurch property. There was a Carolina Power Lights 40 acres. Then this property is 57 acres, and David Upchurch has a 40-acre property.
Where's that?
I don't know. And then Aberdeen Rockfish Railroad has a 52-acre property. I'm not sure where David Upchurch's property is. I think it's in the packet. I don't remember.
The point of clarification, Aberdeen Rockfish Railroad property is off 211 Carolina Road. The David Upchurch property is off of PD Road, across the street from Parkway Commons. Parkway actually dead ends into it, so south of 211. Carolina Light is Newfield Way, where the power building on 1.65.
Any other questions?
And you have other people that want to speak?
Yeah.
No,
No?
they have to sign up, and we have to bring them in and we're ready to open it for public forum. He's the only applicant on the application, so he's the only one who has rights.
Awesome, okay.
Oh, I signed up.
Yes, ma'am.
my opinion.
And
Is that okay?
hold on, we'll bring them in when they're ready to call, to open the public hearing.
Oh, okay.
Okay. All right, I guess we'll open the public hearing. then.
No other conversation, no
I
questions?
don't hear anything.
Thank you very much.
I'd like to jump in and point out a couple different things, and this is very, very specific. So I want y'all to understand, this is townwide. This decision will affect other properties. So individual tenants, individual properties cannot be considered for a townwide text amendment, hence why the rezoning would be more appropriate. Okay, number one. Number two, I forgot what two was, but one was
Am I allowed to express an opinion as the chair?
with regard to the deliberation.
Well,
I would
maybe I
wait.
shouldn't speak about it yet.
I would wait. Yes, ma'am.
All right.
So that's that. Oh, second thing, point of clarification, I did put this in my staff report, I skipped over. Having a site-specific requirement for acreage, while it seems like a good idea, that opens staff and the town up to variance requests, because it is a dimensional standard. Anybody can come in and say, I want a variance. So we are opening the possibility of having acreages less than 35 acres, have this rule apply to it. I just want to make sure that point was made. So without further ado, Christian, Ms. Tammy, you're the first one on that list. Easier.
Hi, everybody. If we're not using the screen, we might turn on some lights. We're losing light in here.
Yes, ma'am. Well,
Is she gonna have, are you gonna have
I'm gonna
anything
have-
that uses the screen? The projection? Okay. Sorry.
It is getting darker.
Well, we were working with the,
I want to see who I'm talking to. Okay, I'm Catherine King. I have Design Market. I know Kids in Design Center, but it's Design Market on Highway 5. And I am getting ready to start my 5th year. I love the area, and anybody that knows me, and Justin and I are getting ready to have a long relationship. I am so passionate about the business there. It is drawing people in from all our surrounding counties. It's, sorry Neil, but it's not an antique mall. It's not just a consignment store. It's a whole experience in there. So I do have 35,000 square feet. I do have a little bit of manufacturing because we have soaps and skincare made right there in the old Chem Lab, which used to be carpet manufacturing. So our building was product design, testing, office space. So we use the office space for artists to have their galleries and their studios in there. And then we have upholstery, drapery workroom, soaps, skincare, all made in there. But in talking to Justin, I realized that the main draw of the building is retail. I've extended the glamour, the joy of coming to Aberdeen down Highway 5. I feel like we're the start of Aberdeen and coming into the whole downtown area. We have people from everywhere. Because of the resort, we may have a rainy day. We had 4 golfers coming yesterday. Because it was raining, they couldn't come in. They came to us just to enjoy this experience. You can shop for antiques. You can shop for new furniture. You can be looking for a velvet green sofa and maybe find it, but also you're going to stumble across something else. We have great vendors in there. Everybody that's in there now is excited and passionate about what we're doing. So I'm here for 2 reasons tonight. I talked to Justin 2 weeks ago and found out that we are no longer in compliance. If I know we've talked about it, and I'm not trying to regurgitate information everybody else has said, but I didn't realize it, and I'm afraid for myself, for all my vendors. My insurance guy jumped all over me about it. My accountant did. I'm passionate. Yes, I want the place to stay, but I also want to be in compliance. I want to be positive and an open book for everybody. If I'm just flying under the radar on this hip, to me it's a hiccup. I know it's major, and y'all have an incredibly hard job, but I want to be in compliance so I don't have any fear. If the building catches on fire and I have to close, if I get sick or I can't be there and the business has to close for a little while, I always want the opportunity to protect the vendors that are in there, protect the businesses in there, but also to still be able to be open. So that's the first thing. I want to be in compliance. The second thing is, I'm out of space. You're like 35,000 square feet? Really? Yes, we are out of space. So I want the opportunity to grow. But I want the opportunity to grow in Aberdeen. I love that area. I feel like we've invested so much in that building and building the business. I don't want to go to Southern Pines. I know there's some other big buildings, other places, but I want to be here. And I just hope I have the opportunity to both stay there because of the rules and regulations, but also to grow. And my place to grow would be right across the street. I don't want to go somewhere else and be on the road all the time. I would love the opportunity to grow in the big building that's right next door. I've talked to, just to give you a little, I'm just trying to be prepared. I've talked to some vendors in High Point because we are furniture. We're so lucky to be close to a lot of furniture manufacturing. They're interested in joining me over there. So instead of just having the concept of design market, I could also expand and have some new furniture and some new vendors to come in there. So we're not just doing the same thing, we're growing. I love the building. It has so much opportunity. I understand there has to be rules and there has to be regulations. There is, otherwise we're not safe and we're not taken care of. We're all trying to go by rules and regulations now. And I get it. But I also wanted to plead my case that, yes, I want to go by the rules, but I am so needing to grow. And I think it would be such a great addition, both to my business and all my vendors, but also to Aberdeen, also to Moore County. I feel like anything we can do here to draw families and give them something to do, they don't have to go out of the area. We're giving it here. So it just becomes another plus for selling and living in Moore County. I work at Pinehurst Resort also, currently laid off, I'm in retail. So I work with big companies from all over. We are well known, but a lot of it is well known for Pinehurst. I want to be well known for Aberdeen also. And let's take some of that opportunity that Pinehurst has given us and bring it down. And I think this, I call my shop a destination. It's an experience, but it also brings people from other places and their destination is coming to Design Market. Has anybody been in there? Thank you. So do you agree that it's more than just an antique mall? It's more than just a furniture store. It gives so many other aspects that I want to grow upon. Can I ask for questions?
Absolutely.
Can I ask for any comments?
Anyone want to?
Well, to me, it isn't a matter of what business you're proposing or what the issues are to your business. Question before us is whether to zone part of a building or part of a property for a specific use or change our entire UDO to permit a specific use. So my question would be, why wouldn't you request a zoning change?
Well, I'm not the building owner. I rent these spaces. So that is probably a question for the owner. But my question to everyone here is, then what do I do? What is your advice as professionals and know all the answers to tell me, where do I go and grow if I can't use the space that I have and enhance it?
Well, I think what this board is concerned about is that we don't want to start cherry picking things for one desirable tenant or business owner that ends up throwing us under the bus a year from now when somebody else comes around and says, oh, we can do this because you've already written it down here. We can't cherry pick single uses. I mean, when we do something, it's across the board. And had this come up in as the UDO was being developed last year, it was only just approved in January. This might have been something that could have been worded in a different way. But like Justin says, there haven't been substantial changes since this rule package went into service. That, and that's one of the reasons for changing it. The conditions have changed so much that the UDO is stale or no longer applicable.
I do realize there have to be rules.
And
Like I said,
we get stuck in these things by, it's not that we don't love your business and want you to be here, but we get stuck in cherry picking things. We get stuck down the road with them.
And I understand, I'm so empathetic, I work for a big company, there has to be rules, there has to be HR rules, there has to be, guidance. But I also feel like I'm an individual, I have a business, I need a voice here. I want to be a part of the community, and I hate to say I'm fighting town hall, but I feel like we also have to look at things individually too.
Well, I understand
So I know
that.
there has to be rules, but I also feel like maybe there's an element of, okay, we have a great business who's doing good for the county and good for the, and I represent us all very well.
I understand, but if we allow large retail, then, the next thing could be, we could have a Toys R Us that big with kids and cars and, I mean, I know Toys R Us
I do
is
want
no
kids
longer.
in cars,
But,
so,
you know,
yeah.
you don't have that. I understand your business, slow moving traffic upscale. If I go in there, I'm in there for 2.5 hours. You don't run in there and grab something and run out. I guess.
Again, it's an experience.
It is. It really
And I
is.
feel
And
like
it's
that makes me unique among all the big box stores. We
But
don't
the way
want big
it's
box
worded,
stores.
it allows the big bucks.
Well, I don't know.
It's the way it's worded, and I don't have a solution for you for that. Am I right, Justin?
No,
But I'm a
Mr.
small
Chairman,
business, not a big box store.
You're absolutely correct. Unfortunately, the town and the courts have upheld that we can't treat one business based on who owns it or the experience, which I'm sure it is, any differently than somebody who does the exact same thing.
But how do we not lose me?
So that's one of the reasons why we're gonna get up. There, you are a non-conforming use, you're not in compliance. We're not gonna come shut you down. The town has no vendetta. You're not in risk of losing your business, with the exception of you closing your doors for 180 days. And that's staff is very, very generous with that interpretation. For example, you have to shut off your water, you have to shut off your power, you have to physically move completely out to be, to say, closed in our eyes. Now, you close because something happened or because, and this goes for any business. You close, if McDonald's was to close down because a hurricane came for 3 months and they're non-compliant use.
Yeah.
We would work with them because they went away for something that was not under the control, and they still had utilities, things like that. Now, furthermore, to add on your addition of expanding,
So compliance, I am. So I came for 2 reasons. Number one, to make sure I can stay open,
yes, ma'am,
check,
as long as you don't close
for 180
80
days.
days, or something happens to the building, which is the other caveat. However,
Okay.
you still have another 180 days to reestablish this use. Simply applying for a building permit would do that.
Okay.
And that doesn't mean, and so everybody's clear on building permits. You can apply for a building permit, an inspection is not required for 6 months. And then, even then, if you fail the inspection, then you have another year to pull another. She can pull a building permit and never build a building. She still has a building permit, meaning the use is still active. So we will work with you on making sure, should something happen, you're okay. Now, the other thing I want to mention is,
And that's the personal side,
Yes, ma'am.
and I do appreciate that. And I want to tell, I know we're tired, I'm sorry. And I don't mean to just keep going and, being to the point of death, but thank you for that. But then the other side is, how do I bring in more people and more county tax dollars and growth?
I think you're reading my mind, because that's the next thing. You're allowed to, as a non-conforming use under chapter 8, which is our non-conforming section, expand up to 25%, as long as you do not exceed 25% of your gross floor area when you became non-conforming. So you have 38,000 square feet now, at 35, I forgot the number. You can expand another 25% of that. So you can still grow your business. Now, the 25% cap is one of those rules and regulations to make sure that we don't expand upon non-conforming uses, otherwise we'll never get compliance. But you still have the right to expand, even if you are non-conforming use.
So say, and I went ahead and said I'm an open book, I talked to 2 other businesses that want to have a presence here in Aberdeen. It's more space than that.
At that point, I recommend, there's, and I don't want to waste the board's time, there's a
And I don't
litany
either, I'm sorry about that.
of assumptions and theories, and we can go down this rabbit hole all night. I think this UDO, as well as my staff and this town, has options that we haven't even explored yet, that very well could be exactly what you're looking for, and I would absolutely love to sit down with you and not waste any more of the board's time on assumptions. However, we have options. Another option could be, just right off the top of my head, is you have another business that wants to locate, and we don't classify them as retail large, which even by the way, at 38,000 square feet, you're not retail large, it's flea market. Another business.
Don't say flea market.
I apologize.
We're better than that.
That's the use of my.
I'm gonna work on that terminology.
You can have more than one use on these properties.
Okay.
This current property you're on does have more than one use. It has a retail aspect in Eden. It has about need another storage facility. It has another storage facility. It has somebody who works on farms. It has a cabinet maker. It has several uses. There's nothing that says that the people you're talking to in High Point, which you probably know, can't also locate here. We could classify them as a furniture manufacturer, which would be
And
perfect
that
for our lot.
Across my parking lot.
We just need to talk to them to make sure we're on the same page. I think it's a little premature to
It is.
try to add this use to an LI based on people that staff has not talked to.
And I didn't mean to throw anything in here, but it's new, I'm new to this.
No, you ran me over on with the bus, I get it.
It's a shame too. But can I talk about some of the permitting on here? No, we'll do that on another day. You know me, you know what I want to do. Any other questions before dinner?
Anyone? Okay, we appreciate you coming and
Thank you so much
thank
for
you
your
for your
time.
presentation and we
I
appreciate
do
what you
appreciate it.
contributed.
Oh, I love Aberdeen. Don't make me leave. Thank you.
Good evening.
Evening.
Is it okay if I take this up or it's okay?
It's your choice.
Sure help.
All right. My name's Jim O'Malley. I just wanted to come in. Of course, I don't want to take up a lot more time tonight, but certainly I wanted to introduce myself and kind of introduce what I've done in the area as a person in business. And besides having the Aberdeen NC self-storage inside this building, I've developed out by the Moore County Airport, which is where the Tyler's Ridge Apartments are out there, and the Ace Hardware, and then the commercial area. So I'm involved with a number of things, but the reason I even bring that up is just to point out that I'm looking to have a reason to be involved with this area. I've just recently bought a house here, and I'm from Wisconsin. Actually, tomorrow I'm driving back just for the summer. But what I wanted to offer to tell you is that what I'm looking for is something that could become something of a more excellence of what people are looking for. People are looking for quality of life things, something that they can look forward to, something that they can enjoy spending time doing, and so forth. Right now, we're in a tough spot with just the makeup of how the building is. It's got a large center section. The center section isn't as very tall as the other areas. It's only about 14, 15 feet tall. I've had to bring in some national, or actually not national, but state industrial brokers just to say, can you help us find find industrial for this building? And of course, they are very excited, and there's actually some real interest in potentially getting to use the spaces for U.S. Customs, because there's a large number of things right at the border, at the sea borders, I'm saying, that are looking for spaces. So of course, we certainly aren't trying to change the zoning, but the zoning are the type of industry for any of these requires the place to be a secured property and so forth. And So it doesn't make it conducive in that center section to be able to do so. And it doesn't have loading docks, which is another factor. And it has the long hallways coming through office spaces. Listening to Catherine King and I coming up with what I believe will become really a fantastic destination and such is what I'm hoping that we're offering to tell you this is going to become. And I also believe that one of the nice things about this is that, you know, it's a thriving business if it's the entire site is doing well. You can't have an area over here being okay and then this area not being okay. I want to make it a secure place. I don't wish to be having any people feeling, you know, nervous about the place, because if you don't have the ability to keep control of it and it's just becoming more and less, you know, the only options are just to try to build out more and more of these, you know, like 6,000 and 8,000 square foot spaces inside the building. I believe life safety is, of course, a big issue, because, you know, you're a mouse walking through tunnels trying to find a way out of the building. I think this plan has a lot more to be. First of all, it'll be an attraction that'll bring people, when they're coming here, spending their time here from outside of the area. They'll then, of course, be able to visit other areas of Aberdeen. And, you know, Aberdeen is going to thrive with that kind of energy, that people are coming here to enjoy being able to shop and spend their time. So I have that, I used those other examples for just a moment because I wanted to say that I had opportunities to try to do things, or I shouldn't say try to do. I had other people asking, could I put in a smoke shop? Could I put in a tattoo, or could I put in maybe even a Dollar General when I'm talking about up by the Ace Hardware? I have a vision that I want, and I'm always about excellent architecture. You'll never offend me about architecture or landscaping. I believe that's an important part of real estate, is that it has that appearance. But I know what I believe is going to happen here, and I'm trying to, I'd like to get you guys to see the same vision, because I think it's going to be something really fantastic. But I also want to point out, the zoning right now, of course, we're not asking and don't wish to change the zoning. There's too much of the building that's valuable as the size that it is. But with the existing zoning, we have certain things that are permitted currently. A pawn shop. Now, of course, I don't know if a pawn shop is the right thing or wrong thing for this zoning, but it is a permitted zoning. It's also that you do have retail sales. It's minor. That means, I guess, 4,000 square feet. Now, I'd like to think of this as something that's going to become something really bigger and special. So that's what the reason for the text amendment is. But of course, you've got other things that, you know, truck stop and vehicle establishments and even hotels and motels. I don't think those things are appropriate for that site. Maybe there is a property that would work. But I'm really trying to ask you.
Mr. O'Malley,
Yes.
our problem is not with we understand what you want to do with your building and the design market. Our issue has to be what is the best thing for the entire town. So you are almost asking sort of for spot zoning, except if we were to do that, and we might. I mean, I don't know, staff doesn't recommend it right now, but it means whatever blanket we lay down, it encompasses the whole town, the whole area that we're responsible for. And I do appreciate Design Market. I think it's a wonderful business, and I do appreciate, and I think the rest of these people do too, what you've done with the Golliston building, or is John your dad?
Dad is, yeah, Dad. My father is John, correct.
Okay, so we've met him.
Yes.
And I think that just the idea that building has come to life is a great thing. But if we start making little rules, we're not changing the zoning classification, but we would be in essence changing the definition of that zoning classification. And the UDO is so new, you know, we haven't.
Well, I'm not just saying that what you're saying isn't correct, and trying to say that. I'd like to think, though, that there was just only 2 years ago how you recognized the idea and then approved for the idea 2 years ago, and the common council did too. I mean, everybody's hoping for something really special to happen, and that's all I'm asking that we try
Right.
to understand.
And we did explain, I don't know if you could hear it or not, but we explained.
And
to
this
Mrs.
is not
King
gonna,
that-
this is a tough
This
situation.
is terrible,
next door.
yes, but we did explain to Ms. King that her business is not in jeopardy. She is more or less grandfathered in for the purpose that she has now. And she's entitled to 25% expansion of her existing
Let
business.
me ask you, is that 25% of the existing square feet of the
Well-
existing building, or could she move into the?
Justin had some
building
answers
that's in
for
the
her
next
and
one?
wanted to speak to her
That's-
privately about that. So I think they were going to be able to work out some favorable solutions possibly.
So is she able to move into the center building, to increase by 25?
expand. Her building's not, her use can't expand.
Her use can expand.
Yes.
So meaning that she's in this building, but she would move into the other building, because the existing building, to expand it, would have to be adding on to an existing building.
That's correct. The building isn't non-conforming. The use is non-conforming. So she could expand the use beyond that building. If the building was non-conforming, then no, she cannot expand the building. But that's not the issue. The issue is her use is non-conforming. And so yes, if there was another building on the property of the same property, then she could expand up to 25% of her GFA.
Okay. And knowing that she could move into this other building, I mean, I guess I understand you're sharing, there's that opportunity. Well, it's a wonderful thing that she isn't going to be held from being able to not do things if something terrible should happen, but you're sort of ending up with something you're saying that we're not trying to do, and I don't know. But listen, as I said when I started, I didn't mean to take up more time. I really do wish to say that I wanted to introduce myself and give a chance to just let you know that I'm here to make some really fun and exciting improvements to Aberdeen. And I really, really hope you understand, I don't believe this to be a spot zoning. I really believe this to be an appropriate use of the property. It's an absolutely perfect way to use. I mean, when buildings were built, this one being in 1948, you know, sometimes we're fixed with what we have, but look at how wonderful it turned out in High Point. They took all those old buildings, they revamped them. They got in Milwaukee, where I'm from, they got these old factories, all of a sudden they're now condominiums and they're restaurants. They weren't built as industrial.
We understand that.
Okay. Well, listen, I do appreciate it. I hope you realize that there are changes in areas throughout the country, recognizing that they don't want the blight to be what they want, but they love the fact that now they've got something special in their community, and that's exactly what I want to see happen. So, all right, guys, have a wonderful night.
Thank you for
And
coming
everybody
in.
stay safe. Take care. Thanks.
All right. Some notes, if you'll allow me, Ms. Chairwoman, to clarify some things that were said through the past three speakers. I want to make very clear, and it seems like y'all get it, so I really appreciate that. But first, the text amendment, as y'all are aware, and it seems like a lot of y'all understood this and made this point, cannot be site specific. So while I certainly appreciate Mr. O'Malley's vision for that property, y'all seemingly understand that this is a text amendment for the entire town. As such, staff recommended rezoning. If I could expand upon that a little further, a rezoning would be more appropriate because A, it's surgical, but B, we also can do conditional zoning. So he can add these uses to this property and still keep that alive. This was explained to the applicant, and we're here tonight, so I don't know why that route was not chosen. So the vision that he spoke on, while it's very appreciative and Aberdeen, the staff looks forward to him building out what he shared with us, it's very exciting, is not site specific. More importantly, it's not site specific forever. So if he has a vision to never have large retail and tear this building down for a strip center, that's all well and good, but we can't hold him to make sure that never happens if he sells the property. A conditional zoning runs with the land, and as such, if y'all put conditions on the property to say, design market, this use, this square footage, that's forever, whether he sells the building or not. So the vision can be memorialized in a conditional zoning request with light industrial. So I just wanted to be very clear on that. Again, we discussed Ms. King's compliance and non-compliance. Specifically, she's a non-conforming use as her the use type indicates, which is indoor sale or flea market. I apologize. Flea market, antique mall, indoor sales. To clarify, there was conditional use permit sought for this property 3 years ago, I believe, is actually the time frame. Maybe it had to be 3 years ago. And for the indoor conditional use for the antique and flea market indoor use for the inside of the large building. That was approved by y'all. Well, it was recommended approval by y'all and approved by the Board of Commissioners. Unfortunately, the reason why we're here tonight, why they can't continue with that, is because they never pulled permits for that conditional use, and conditional uses do expire. Again, the benefit to rezoning is they last forever until somebody comes back and rezones them. So if you put a condition today on that property over there, 100 years later, that condition's still on there unless somebody comes back before you. So I want to make that clear. Also, that basically rezone or sums up my comments on my rebuttals essentially to what was said tonight. I'm still available for questions, and as such, go free to deliberate and make a motion supporting or not supporting. I'd make the argument it should be a motion to recommend a motion in the affirmative to the Board of Commissioners. If y'all have any questions for me.
Yes, I do.
Yes, sir.
So you said there's a way that they can get a permit to do what they want to do just for the building.
For that property, yes, sir.
Okay.
They can do a conditional zoning request, which is very similar to a text amendment. It's a legislative process, comes before y'all, just like any rezoning.
I mean, but that's rezoning the whole thing. But I'm talking about, can they do? Did you say there was something they could do?
They used to. They used to do
But not
conditional use
now.
permits. No, sir. We abolished those. Very similar to Thomas Tire. It required a conditional use permit, and again, the state was going to abolish them as of January 1st, 2021 anyways, so we preemptively did away with them and invoked special use permits more so. But again, the UDO is very, in my opinion, professional opinion, the UDO is very lenient and open with allowing by right zoning uses. So large retail minor, for example, never has to come back before a board. We don't have it as a special use. Special uses are thought, and conditional uses are thought of specific properties with a specific use that needs more scrutiny. So we did have that. They did have that avenue. They chose to do it. It expired because they did not pull permits in time. But we no longer have that because we think of ourselves and this UDO to be a little more open and accepting of uses. Unfortunately, it's just this one use or these two uses, retail large and antique mall indoor that was not allowed by right in LI.
So what you're saying is he could pull a special use permit on that site? He cannot.
No, ma'am.
But he could conditionally zone
Yes, ma'am.
that section of the building.
And the zoning rules with the land.
But
However, his request could be, I'm going to conditionally rezone it for light industrial with this use added to it.
and then it's not spot zoning.
No, ma'am, it's not considered spot zoning, because it's a down use. Obviously, we're not going to.
How much more expensive is it on the applicant to do that than it is to do what they do here tonight? I know they have to pay an application fee to come out. Just guess.
My guess is if it's not the same exact monetary amount, it's within $100.
Anybody else got any questions or comments?
That would mean any other building in the same zoning could do the same thing, right?
No,
No,
That's, no.
that was what he wanted to do.
Wait, well, I'm gonna assume that you mean he can conditionally zone his parcel and that will not affect any other LI, that's correct. However, somebody else later down the road could say, I want to condition my LI,
Right.
but again, that would be a separate request before y'all, and it could be any number of things, it doesn't necessarily have to be retail.
Yeah, but I mean, setting a precedence in one, they could take it over, they could use that.
Well,
Somewhat.
yes and no, because a conditional zoning is site specific, the precedent doesn't necessarily apply to the rest of town. So for example, if, in this particular case, if he was to conditionally zone his piece of property because he has a lot of retail uses on there, that would be appropriate. But if we went a couple doors down, literally a couple doors down to the Duke property, which is nothing but a fleet garage and their admin office, and say, well, we want to have retail there too, that would be a specific, site-specific request and might not be more appropriate, or maybe more appropriate. It just really depends. If light industrial over off of 211 Carolina Road had the same request, y'all and the board of commissioners may not see that as more appropriate and deny their very same request because it's site specific as opposed to a town-wide text amendment.
You have to look at the flavor of the neighborhood, I think.
It's exactly, that's why conditional zonings are a great tool in the town's toolbox, because you look at the use and you look at how it affects the neighborhood. Thomas Hire is the exact same way. We are looking a little more closely at the traffic on Poplar Street, not only zoning, but it's the same premise. You can apply those to conditional zone properties.
Do we need some motions? Or is there some more comments?
No? Because you're talking on.
Do you have
No, ma'am, we don't have any set motions. It's do we entertain a motion? And the motion is, I make a motion that we approve the text amendment as proposed, and you all vote that way. It should be in the affirmative. As we discussed earlier, a motion should be in the affirmative if we can help it.
So we would make a motion to approve, but generally, if we didn't like it, we would vote negative.
That's correct. And if it was to fail because of that, then it fails. As opposed to the other way around of I make a motion to
Deny, then what are you gonna do?
and then that does not pass, then we didn't do anything.
All right, so we'll entertain a motion to approve the text amendment request.
so moved.
Mr. Bone, second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Pomerantz. All in favor? All opposed? So we have one vote in each direction.
I'm confused.
If you don't like it, you vote
If you
no.
don't
That's
like
correct.
it, you vote nay.
I thought we denied.
No,
No, you have to
No.
make the motion in the affirmative. In other words, the motion says to approve.
the motion was to approve. If you don't want to, you vote nay.
You vote no if you don't want it.
No.
So just
Shall we
try
run,
to
you want to run it
recall.
back through?
Yes, let's write.
We're gonna run it one more time. Scratch.
We still have the
Call the
motion.
Motion is still on the
Yes,
floor.
the motion is to approve the text amendment as proposed. That's what I heard. Is that correct, Maria?
Yes.
Okay.
All in favor? All opposed?
No.
Motion is defeated.
Yep. You
Okay,
got that all right?
all right.
All right, last but not least, and I'll try to go very.
Is that legal?
Sorry.
That's legal.
Yeah, close enough. All right, fairly quickly. As we discussed, throughout the adoption of the new UDO for the 8 months leading up to January 1st, staff hopefully made it painfully obvious that there is no such thing as a perfect UDO. There never will be. I could spend 3 years writing this and it's not right. However, staff also understood that this was an accelerated timeline because my last stop, ironically enough, in High Point took 3 years, and we still didn't have it right the first time. And we took 8 months, which was blazing fast in a professional opinion, at least mine. So as such, staff made several typos, omissions. Unfortunately, we did not get the town attorney to completely review it line by line, word by word. And as such, we adopted what I feel very strongly about is a good UDO, but needs immediate changes. And I hope I preface that throughout the adoption that There will be typos, there will be omissions, there will be confusions, and as such, we promised the first update. First, what I call update 1. There will be update 2, which has a little more significant changes in it. But staff has worked, now that we have the new UDO in place, and we are working through it with individual site plans, individual subdivisions, along with feedback from the community and a thorough review by 2 different town attorneys. We feel that we have identified several areas that we need to clean up and address. I will say off the top of my head, my guess is 75% of these are typos or small minor changes at the request of the town attorneys, such as, for example, the first one I can think off the top of my head is, unfortunately, we use general business and general commercial interchangeably. We only need one, so we converted everything to general commercial. So anywhere, any reference in the UDO where it says general business, meant general commercial, so that's a couple of text amendments before you today. Other things was small little changes like North Carolina general statutes, adding the word general, but not limited to language. Again, most of those came from the town attorney. Some of the things were deleting the word morals in general purpose and intent because the state actually does not allow it. There are new rules with regards to when permits actually apply to the UDO or vice versa. For example, if you were to apply for a site plan on December 1st and you told me you wanted to be reviewed under the UDO, nobody did because everybody liked the old UDO better, it's a lot easier for them. Then you have a permit choice. You have a right to say, I want to be chosen under the old UDO. After January 1st, new applications no longer have that right, although there was some language that the state legislature passed in 2019 and will pass or will come online with the 160D, if you remember that training, where an applicant still has a permit choice. And so the town attorney felt very strongly we need to add the language. So a lot of that's that. For the most part, we left alone all actual specifics. So for example, setbacks, we didn't touch. We didn't touch property height or pole heights or building heights. We did not touch lighting standards. We did add one thing in chapter 5 that we did add, but chapter 5 is meat and potatoes. Basically, when I get a site plan, that's 90% of what I look at on site plan. Chapter 5: lighting, design, landscaping, parking, access, signage, screening of dumpsters. There's 12 sub-chapters of chapter 5. That's 90% of what we review on site plan is in there. Most of those things did not change. One thing that we did add in there, and ironically enough, tonight's text amendment helped trigger this, was we do have building standards with materials, colors, facades, transparency, glass, glazing, stuff like that. We don't allow just boxes anymore. You have to have some sort of variation. You can't use certain types of lighting. You can't outline things. Unfortunately, staff put forward to y'all, and the board approved that only applied to office, institutional, neighborhood, commercial, and general business. General commercial. See, even still messing up. We felt very strongly that this should also apply to LI zone districts. As such, obviously, anything on 5 means just a certain standard. 5 is where most of our LI is. And so we felt that some of these new businesses and new buildings to be constructed need to hold up to the same standards we hold somebody on US 1. Now, it still excludes, obviously, single-family residential because the state took that power away from towns years ago. And it also excludes heavy industrial because we just don't see that as feasible to say that concrete plants have got to have nice, pretty windows. It's a concrete plant. And as such, as you all noticed tonight, with the protection of zoning districts, there is a place for that. It's not highly visible on NC5. So as such, that was a lot of it. Some of it was redundant language. Most of chapter 1 was changes. Another thing that in chapter 2 we did look at that we wanted to address when we put forward, we have public hearing versus public quasi-judicial hearing. There's technically actually a third type of meeting called a public meeting, where at y'all's discretion you can take public comment or not. The major point is if you consider it a public hearing by state statutes, we have to spend an exorbitant amount of money advertising it. Whereas we don't even have to take public comment. And so staff cannot build in the ability to have a meeting that we don't have to advertise, we don't have to send notices out, we don't have to run ads in the newspaper. We can save a little bit of money. And as such, we advocated a new type of meeting called a public meeting, which doesn't have to meet the same legal thresholds that a public hearing does. Y'all's meetings are considered public meetings, although the new UDO considers them public hearings. So we did advertise for Thomas Tire and we did advertise for the text amendments. Y'all are making a decision. So by state statutes, we technically didn't need to do that, but we considered it a public hearing, so we had to. We're converting that to public meetings just for planning board, so we don't have to spend that kind of money and time and resources advocating a recommendation. We still have to do it on the quasi judicial and the public hearings. So for example, quasi judicial is obviously a special use permit. A rezoning is a legislative public hearing for the Board of Commissioners. We still have to advertise, we still have to notice, we still have to do whole line of per state standards. No sooner than 25 days before the hearing, no later than 10 days before the hearing. So we do have a set window by the state. So we did change that rule. That is a large change with regards to the table 212, which is our review table, who reviews what and approves what. We also eliminated street name change which, as a process, which is a big change in chapter 2. The major thinking behind that is the town of Aberdeen actually doesn't have a lot of rights or wherewithal to be able to change the road. That has to be approved by Moore County, as we do have an interlocal agreement. For example, we can address, so when a new subdivision comes in, we don't approve names. We don't approve even which lot numbers or which addresses go to what lot. In fact, a little bit of a pain, I'll complain a little bit, is they will address lots that face the certain roads. They will not address corner lots until they get a building permit. So now I've got to send my building permits to Moore County, and then I've got to come back with the address and put it back in the system, and it's cart before the horse, but that's the agreement we have with Moore County. So really, there's no need for us to have a process of changing the roads, since it's not even our ability to do so. So that's most of what's chapter in chapter 2. Again, there's small little typos. We did change all the hearings for planning board to meetings. We took out the street name change. Chapter 3 had some things.
Justin, before you go on,
Yes, ma'am.
chapter 3 on page 18, you're referencing footnotes 1 and 2, and I don't think there were footnotes 1 and 2.
Footnote
It's
1.
under the light industrial. part.
Yes, ma'am. Footnote 1 is a footnote that we have in a lot of our zoning districts that this town attorney felt was redundant, which was all development shall comply with the town's driveway ordinance requirements. It's redundant because everybody has to do that. So that's footnote 1 in LI. And then footnote 2, it's probably a holdover. We left that. The holdover being, I thought it should be a change to change footnote 2 to footnote 1 now.
Yeah.
Just change the nomenclature. Technically, by the town attorney's recommendation is that's a presumed change once we eliminate footnote 1.
Okay, because the same thing on page 319.
Yes, ma'am.
um,
Yeah, so
there's
2 becomes
everything-
the new 1, 3 becomes the no 2, and we get rid of the original 1. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
You're correct. All right. That's chapter 3. Again, we try to clean up where we could, general commercial versus general business. We took out certain languages with regards to definitions because we wanted them to move to states. For example, assisted living facilities. The town attorney recommended we did that. Define cows, which are cells on wheels, small cell phone towers that you can pull behind a truck and set up in an emergency. We added a little bit of language with regards to retail sales in the central business district. This came up recently. We had to make an interpretation until we could recommend this change, which was in the central business district, staff is looking to prohibit outdoor storage, which is storage of goods, services, cars, things of that nature in downtown. We're not advocating that all retail, and it's just for retail sales. So for example, if I'm a pawn store and I roll out, I have my bikes out 24/7. The definition of outdoor storage is you have goods and services outside 24/7. So we're prohibiting that. Now, we're not saying you can't show your wares on the sidewalk. We're further clarifying that to be outdoor display. However, outdoor display is only during business. So when you close for the night, you roll all your stuff back in the door. And when you open the next door, you can pull it back out. So that's the guide for the use of the sixth standard in chapter 4. Again, small changes in 4. 5 didn't have a real thing, although we did widen our sidewalks, which was a mistake. We we had talked about having them 10 by 20 feet, 10 feet wide, 20 feet deep. Obviously, with cars these days, especially being a more rural community, F-250s are very common. And as such, we felt that a 9-foot wide parking space was a little too tight. We intended to have 10. Again, it did not carry over into what was adopted. So this is a recommended change. Let's see, sign, we had a little more sign language, again, with the recent Supreme Court case. We wanted to make sure that we were on the up and up on that and not open to legal challenge. You cannot regulate the message of the sign. That was the court case for Reed versus Gilbert, Arizona, where they basically said that sign's okay because we like that message, but your sign we don't because we don't approve your business. A sign is a sign is a sign. It does not matter. And there was some clarifying language in there from the town attorney. We did accidentally switch a setback, or I'm sorry, a square footage allowance with a height. That was an accident. It was a typo. So, for example, temporary real estate signs, you can do 6 square feet, 12 feet in height. Whoops, we meant the other way around. So that's one of the changes to 5. Another typo is the wall signs. We had max height. Unfortunately, for wall signs, it was 8 feet and 6 feet, which doesn't make a lot of difference. What we meant was top of the wall. So the sign can go at the very top of the building, cannot extend beyond the top of the building. You can't project the sign any higher than what your building is. Obviously, McDonald's has a sign on their building that's taller than 8 feet tall. So that was a typo on my part. Again, cleaning languages, exemptions to lighting standards. Town installed at least street lighting is exempt. So we're not privy to our own rules, but again, we're self-conscious about not having bright spotlights. But we want to make sure we were kept in legal conformity with that. That's most of 5. 6 had some rules and regulations regarding environmental concerns, but not a lot. Most of that's going to come in update 2. We had some clarifying languages in chapter 7, which is subdivisions. One thing that we messed up was at the 11th hour, which y'all got less. I want to think that y'all didn't see it, but the town administration felt that the board of commissioners should still be the accepting and releasing authority for sureties. We did change that in chapter 2, which is the process chapter. We did not continue that language to chapter 7, which is about subdivisions. So we added that language to make sure it mimicked each other. Chapter 2 now matches chapter 7. Not that we were challenged on it, but again, this is all preemptive stuff. More stuff about sureties and maintenance warranties, which the state eliminated. Continuing violations, which is chapter 9, and we did not touch anything in chapter 10. Was there any specific questions about anything you've heard or that you've read?
I'm just curious about what happens with the sections that you're labeling reserved.
Very quick and dirty answer. I didn't want to be tedious and going back and change every single that's the only reason. There's no plan for it. As such, again, because of my involvement with the High Point UDO rewrite, which took 3 years, I've heavily based our initial drafts on theirs. And as such, some of their rules and requirements could not apply to ours. For example, they have their own soil erosion control review team, or I guess it's called a program. We do not, so we rely on DEQ. So some of those sections in the environmental sections is considered reserved. High Point had that rule. We can't have that rule until we go through the state and get vetted through that. So basically, instead of changing 8.23 on everything, all moving up very similar to your footnote comment, we just left it as reserved. So that's the simple decision. But there are no plans. There are no plans for 95% of them. There are plans for example, corridor overlays, just in case this board or the town wants to explore that further. I did leave that as room to grow, as well as small area plans and other types of development. I know there's been one developer that approached us about the possibility of a conservation subdivision, which we did not build into this UDO, but we left space for it just in case we want to. There's a whole section that we can plug and play basically.
What about realtors?
What about realtors?
Leaving tables outside, chairs, tables, in the outside storage.
For restaurants and stuff things. So we don't prohibit it. We don't consider that tables and chairs for a restaurant is outdoor storage because they're not selling those things. I mean, obviously staff completely understands that everything has a price. You come in there and want $1 million for my Jeep, I'll gladly sell it to you.
Yeah, I'm sure.
No, you, I might cut you a deal, 800,000. But we don't enforce tables and chairs as outdoor storage on sidewalks in the central business district with one caveat. As long as there is 4 feet of distance of sidewalk that's completely clear, we're not going to enforce that, rule. It's not even a rule because we don't consider it outdoor storage, but we will not, talk to the business owner so long as they maintain affordable clearance on sidewalks. We would like to encourage outdoor dining, especially specifically in our CB district. And the only other caveat is we do allow for A-frame signs to be in the sidewalk as well for businesses to promote their business for sidewalk traffic. Again, so long as sidewalks are 4 feet in width and clear.
I'm just wondering.
Yes, sir. I'm looking very forward to, we've got good conversations with Masons on Sycamore Street of having their, this is a shameless plug, I never get my order right, but the Birdie's Hot Mess is delicious, and one day I look forward to being able to go to the restaurant and having it outside with my wife. So hopefully they, with this coronavirus, will be able to do that. And I know with the South Street project and widening the sidewalk, which one of the intents is to allow for me, Amelia, to be able to have outdoor dining, is something that we're encouraging. Again, it's not necessarily considered an outdoor storage or outdoor display. Is there any other questions? Yeah, Mr. Chairwoman, if you wouldn't mind doing a motion in the affirmative or support of these amendments.
All right, can I hear a motion that we adopt the text amendments as
So moved.
displayed? Motion by Ms. Aldridge, second by Mr. Bone. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Any other business? You've left it on the agenda, so is there any updates or anything else to talk about?
I know this board has suggested or requested that staff give very quickly some updates on things that y'all previously heard. For example, the Lake Village, which was a conditional zoning for a planned development that came before y'all and was approved by the Board of Commissioners, I think, last summer. As you may have read in the newspaper, it's not moving forward with the developer that was the applicant at the time. I do know, and I talked to the property owner and a real estate broker, that their intent is to still move forward and find somebody. Obviously, the zoning, as we mentioned earlier, is in place and all those conditions come with it, and who buys it, unless they come back before you all and try to remove it, which in that case, y'all have a say. But right now, as far as staff is concerned, that project is dormant at best. The Martin property, which did come before this board, I believe in August of last year, was set to go before the Board of Commissioners. However, at the request of the applicant, they requested a delay. They came back before staff. I believe they added, and I don't want to speak out of turn, but I think they restructured their ownership group. They haven't changed anything on what y'all approved, with the exception of they did come back with a use list, which they should have had, and that's my mistake. But they came back with a use list they are seeking by right. But it's nothing out of the ordinary for the 38,000 square feet commercial they proposed. It's well within the retail and commercial uses, which is what they presented to y'all. That will go before the board Tuesday night, for final adoption of their zoning at 6 p.m. in this room. Trying to think, was there any other cases that y'all can remember that we all heard that you'd like to know more about or where it stands?
What about the A&R line thing on Pine Street, where they're loading all the trucks, unloading the trucks?
Yes, ma'am. That is, I'll have to do a little bit more research on that. To my knowledge, that did not come before this board and was not approved at the board level. However, I want to say before my time, that use was approved by staff, I believe. But I can research that more and come back to you with the particulars of exactly what's going on.
Because I thought they were moving.
it was explained to us that they have been thinking about it, but they have not submitted any documentation or had any conversations to me or my staff, to my knowledge, about any details of action.
Is there a button on the town website to get to watch these meetings?
Yes, ma'am.
I could not find it today.
They are posted, and the IT specialist and the town clerk post those, I believe, 5 to 10 minutes before the meeting. Unfortunately, there's not a link they can provide without starting the meetings.
Okay, so there can't just be a dead button up there, so, okay. You have to wait till it's on. All right, I got it. Well, thank you.
Absolutely. Is there any other questions about any other development?
What about that restaurant, 211? Next to the house. of
Next to
Fish?
House of Fish, that guy, did he have full permits?
He has submitted him and his engineers submitted site plans. I believe they've gone through 2 revisions. In a very diplomatic way, they have a lot of work before them that I don't know they can overcome. It's my job, in my opinion, as a public servant to not tell somebody no. If they can come up with a creative way to meet the rules and regulations, I don't know it all. So if they can prove to me they do it, we're all good. Staff has, the TRC has significant heartburn, specifically with watershed or I'm sorry, not watershed. Wetlands, delineation of wetlands, as well as sewer connection. I don't know how they could overcome it, but again, I'm not an engineer, so maybe they could come up with some very expensive or very creative way to overcome that. As such, the last site plan that they've submitted was approximately 2 months ago, and we have not heard from them since. It does look like that the barber shop, which they were intending to continue, has been boarded up as of yesterday. So I don't know whether he's moved on. Sometimes people just disappear, unfortunately.
Maybe Saturday morning he'll be back because he can open.
I mean, what are you trying to say?
That's right.
I was just making a point.
He couldn't be a barber shop for the last couple of months anyway.
That's correct. That's correct.
Okay, well, we thank you.
Thank you all. I want to say I really appreciate y'all's patience with staff, specifically me, as always, but specifically tonight with regards to the technology. I know this was not easy. I know there was a lot of questions and comments and concerns, and we are trying to address these, and we're trying to learn through this difficult time, but I can't say anything else. I really appreciate all of y'all's patience and correspondence with me to try to make sure that we could get this started, and hopefully it didn't go off without a hitch, but I think it went as smooth as can be expected, so thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, with that, we'll declare ourselves adjourned.
Make a motion.
The agenda, I don't think we have to have one, do you?
I'll wait. Thank you.